Right, so we're back for Don't Mess with Jim. It's the week after the Rugby World Cup final. I'm back at the Wolfpack bar. Me microphone, look at it, there we go. There's a bit more noise, it's a bit more rugged. And we're here to talk about rugby, and as we know, there's some news, and we will come on to that later. Let's revolve back. Revolve back? Is that a saying? Revolve back? Yeah, let's go. Yeah, revert back. Roll back the years. I was trying to put them two into one. And roll back the week, because we need to talk about the Rugby World Cup in Japan and how epic it actually was. I'm not too sure how many of you, millions of watchers and listeners out there, went to Japan, but there was record attendances. The viewing figures were astronomical. You know, you throw a typhoon Hagibis in the middle of that, and the devastation that caused in Japan, and what they managed to bring back from that, beating Scotland and putting on one of the best World Cups we've ever seen. It's fair to say. So, you know, hats off to Japan, everyone involved in the build-up to the World Cup, during the World Cup, and hopefully that legacy continues over in Asia, which is a fantastic place. I'm a quarter Chinese, so I want to see rugby grow over there. And long may the growth of the game continue. So you've got to look back on last week, and we've got to probably look at a couple of things. Let's talk about Scotland first, and where does Scotland go from here? Speaking to John Barclay, a good friend of mine, it was unfortunate for them. Maybe it weren't really unfortunate. It's their own fault that they're on the flight home with Uruguay via London to get back. Where does Scotland go? Well, they need to win the Six Nations. Let's not beat around the bush. Can they do it? It's going to be difficult. We'll see with the squad of players that they've got. Gregor Townsend will stay on now. We've not heard anything different. Probably the right decision. Stuart Hogg came out and said they can't keep saying they're going to get better. We've got to learn our lessons. They said that when I was playing. England. How good were England at the World Cup? Hey, England fan, ain't you? Sam's behind the camera today.
They were good. Just disappointed to lose in the final. But, one of those things.
Yeah, one of those things, definitely. It is one of those things. And, you know, if anyone was going to beat them, it was and could have been South Africa, and obviously was South Africa, and fully deserved the victory. You know, for England, they've had an amazing World Cup. Obviously missed the game along the way against France. But in terms of their credibility, Eddie Jones's credibility, and the kind of demographic, the age of that group, I imagine in 4 years' time, if Eddie Jones stays on, which I think he will, if England do well in the Six Nations, then they'd probably go in there, depending on results, obviously, up there as favourites. You know, All Blacks, it was actually quite nice to see them knocked off their perch. Big All Blacks fan, love the haka, love everything they stand for. But it's time for someone else, and that someone else is South Africa. So, fantastic champions, an amazing country, been there a few times. Was there in December filming a documentary, and you saw the scenes and the ramifications, what it means for that country. Siya Kolisi, the first black captain of South Africa, which shouldn't really be a thing, the fact that he is the first black captain, but it is still a thing, unfortunately, and that kind of shows where we are as a nation. As a world that we live in. So big respect for what they've done and the way they played the game, and the way they dispatched that England team. And I'm sure the celebrations will carry on for a few more days, maybe even a few more weeks, and we will see South Africa as a country grow. The Lions tour is obviously there in a couple of years, and that just adds unbelievable fuel to that fire. So you should get out there for that Lions tour, because that's just going to be epic. You know, South Africa without a coach now, Rassie Erasmus moves up to director of rugby, which means he's just going to be a bit warmer. He's not going to be on the pitch as much, and they'll be looking internally, I think, for the next head coach. So that'll be unbelievable. So South Africa, again, huge congratulations. England, massive congratulations. And Scotland, let's come back stronger next time. Let's just do it next time, eh? Some news. Some big news, which we ain't going to talk about just yet. We'll come on to the big news, massive news, biggest news we've ever been involved in rugby. Let's talk about some other news. Sonny Bill Williams, as we know, the New Zealand All Black, number 12, 13, 14, second row, wherever he wants to play, offloading king, is off to Toronto Wolfpack. Synonymous. Are we related? We probably are. With the energy, not the money. Not the money that they've obviously got, Toronto Wolfpack. They have thrown everything at him, millions of pounds, which converts to millions of dollars, which converts to trillions of rupees. He is off to the Toronto Wolfpack to play rugby league, and from what I'm hearing, what I'm reading, it gives him an opportunity to then play rugby league for Samoa, which is an amazing thing. And it's a shame that he couldn't do that, or players from the South Sea Islands, or from the kind of Samoan, Tongan or Fijian descent. You know, it's a shame they can't play for the All Blacks or whoever and then go back to play for the Tier 2 nations. So he's going to go around about it through $1 million pound rupees package to go and play rugby league for Samoa. So he's a world-class star, athlete, friend, follows me on social. Yeah, when I was in New Zealand for the Lions show, I went in and got a Sonny Bill haircut. It looked absolutely horrendous, but he liked it. So I liked it. But yeah, Sonny Bill Williams. There's talk of Manu Tuolangi as well. Imagine that.
Yep. Although Leicester have come out this morning saying there's no chance he's gonna be leaving Leicester.
Of course, there's no chance. Imagine if you're Leicester, you've not had a fit Manu Tuolangi for about 10 years, and then all of a sudden he's world star at the World Cup, fittest we've ever seen. I tell you what, Toronto Wolfpack, we're going to pay him $3 million a year, and he's coming. No, Manu, don't do it. Don't do it. Get back to Leicester and turn that club around, because it needs turning around. What else have we got? Ronan OGara. You heard about the little bit of news coming out about him? So, well, firstly, there's talk of the next All Blacks coach, Scott Robinson. There's talk of him internally, but there's talk if Scott Robertson goes to the All Blacks, he might bring Ronan OGara with him. And the news is, anyway, is that Ronan OGara coached with Robertson at Crusaders, that him and Steve Hansen had a frosty relationship. He, quote, said that it was cold. He felt cold. And since that happened a couple of years ago, so as we know, Ronan OGara, Ireland, British and Irish Lions, Munster legend, went to Racing Metro, Racing 92 to coach, and then went to the Crusaders in 2018 and won the Super Touch, or whatever you want to call it, with them. And from what I'm reading and what I'm hearing, Steve Hansen was just a bit cold, a bit frosty with him. But if you think about New Zealand as a country, they were, arguably are, potentially going forward still, the world's best rugby team, historically. So a lot of New Zealand coaches come over here. Not many British and Irish coaches go over there. Now, I think Steve Hansen was taken aback. He maybe thought that Ronan OGara was a bit of a spy for the Ireland national team. But since then, I think they've shook hands, and I think Ronan OGara was quite candid with him and said, look, he wanted to go to New Zealand, the best rugby country in the world, and coach at the highest level and learn about new things. So they had a handshake. Anyway, but it's a bit of news. Quite interesting, isn't it? 'Cause you only hear all glory. All glory. So fair play to Ronan OGara. Love to see him as a coach of the All Blacks, but he's at La Rochelle at the minute, the top 14, big money there. And I thought I've moved a lot. Ronan OGara's got 4 kids as well. Apparently he's moved a lot as well. He also made a comment. So I was looking about Ronan OGara and what else he was saying. So I heard about this, but did you hear what he said about, in hindsight, what Eddie Jones should have done? He said that they should have brought Dan Cole off by hook or by crook in that game and let the game go to uncontested scrums. Bending the rules. No comment. Let's not talk about bending rules. But in hindsight, I think the scrum played a big part in that England game, England-South Africa final. It really did. I don't want to sit here and say that there were other facets. I've been in scrums before that are going forward at the rate of knots and we win, and they're going back. And I've never been in a scrum going back like that England scrum was going back. There was other factors to that. Mako Vunipola, scrummaging isn't his strongest quality out of all the very good qualities that he's got. So it was a lot better when Joe Marler came on. So maybe Dan Cole wasn't the problem. Maybe it was Mako Vunipola. Because when Marler came on, straight away, second scrum got a penalty, and momentum seemed to be changing. Anyway, old news, but Ronan OGara giving his view on what England should have done. I'm not too sure what advice he gave to Ireland, because they're a long way behind at the minute. Talking about a long way behind, seeing that the segue there, Australia. So now there's an inquest, if that's the right thing in putting it. They've put a panel together to review the World Cup flop. The World Cup's been a flop for them. Quote. I don't know who's quoted that, but it clearly has been a flop. They weren't great. Australian rugby seems to be on its knees at best, on its arse. I would probably say, the whole Israel Folau thing that thankfully has gone quiet, but that caused a huge storm across the world, not just in rugby, but in the whole of kind of sport and everything that we talk about and the world that we live in now. Then you look at their franchises, which aren't going great, and then you look at the World Cup for them wasn't great. It needs to be looked into. So they put a panel together. Pat Howard, who I played with at Leicester, coached with, he's been doing a bit of consultancy work at Leicester. Nathan Sharp, former second row lock, friend of mine. Follow each other on social media. Does that make you friends or not? If you best friends, I'm best friends with Nathan Sharp. Played against him a few times. And B.O. Hansen, the 4-time Olympic rower. He's got a business called Athlete Assessment, so he'll probably be well placed to have a look at the Australia team. But what I'm hearing is that they're going to interview all the players at the World Cup and all the staff, and they're going to go and find out what was really wrong with that team. Obviously, Michael Checker's now left, and there's talk of Stephen Larkin coming back. But yeah, Australia rugby's in a bit of a mess at the minute, and hopefully, one of the big powerhouses of rugby comes back to the fore. But they need to sort the mess out that is over there at the minute. Talking of mess, I love my segues. See what I do is I say talking of mess after I've just said it. Say again? Segues are great. It's just the evolution. Talking of mess, Leone Nakawara, the second row of Fiji, and I mentioned Sonny Bill William and his offloading ability. This guy is up there with the best in the world, being Sonny Bill Williams at offloading. The Fijian and the Racing 92, former Glasgow second row, has failed to turn up to Racing 92 in Paris 2 weeks after the World Cup's finished. So what's happened is he's got a 2-week break after the World Cup, having played all the games for Fiji. From what I'm reading and what I'm hearing, and from what Dan Leo has said, that he's gone back to Fiji. So he's gone back home, and Fiji's a long way to get to, a hard place to get to. And he's helping his family build houses or build a house. The specific details haven't come out, and he's not turned up to Paris. Now, I'm split on this, really, because he should have really turned back up to his club if that was the agreed date. We've seen Stuart Hogg a week after he got back from the World Cup. He's playing for Exeter. I'm sure we'll see the same with the Leicester players who didn't play as much. I know he didn't play that much. I know Nakawara played a lot of games, but still, Racing 92 are paying your salary. But I am split because they are paying his salary, but Fiji's such a long way to get to, and you heard about what Saracens are doing with their World Cup stars in terms of giving them the needed time that they need to have off to rest physically and mentally. So, there's always an issue with this kind of thing. And Dan Leo is well placed. He's helping, and he has set up a Pacific Islanders kind of RPA style rugby players union, because they do need managing in different ways. Like we've seen a few kind of problems. No, I wouldn't say problems with them. They're just different. As in, it's a different culture. Not they specifically, but they're a long way from home. Do you know what I mean? Like if I've not been home for 2 years, like someone like Nakawara probably hasn't, and I'm at a World Cup and I pop home, it's a difficult one. So hopefully that gets sorted out and he returns back to his club and everything's happy. I don't want to see anyone get fired or lose their salary. He's back home building a house. Hopefully it's a lovely house. I'd love to see it one day. Some good news. Or some goodish news, if you want to call retirement good news. But the Beast, do you know how to say his name? Tendai Tamwari, I think it is. Commentator's nightmare. The Beast, we'll call him. Retired from international rugby, 117 caps at the coalface, in the front row. Now, he's the third most capped Springbok behind Habana and Victor Matfield. But what a way to go out. Now, I've played against the Beast. He probably has no idea, but I did. Played against him, so I scrummed on the right-hand side tight head lock. So when I looked up a few times, he was there. I was that close to him. Fantastic player. Anyone who remembers the British and Irish Lions tour in 2009, where he absolutely hosed Phil Vickery, stalwart of the game. And now he's done a job on Dan Cole as well. So 2 English tight heads have been dispatched, along with probably many a tight head, by the Beast. What a fantastic player. Servant to the game, everything you read, everything you hear, having played against him before, Nigel Owens made a couple of comments about what he was like to referee, and he made a high tackle or a dangerous tackle and Mr. Referee, I'm sorry. Humble guy. Do you remember him lifting up that second row above his head by his pants? I can't remember who the second row was. So strong, so powerful, and again, what a way to go out. I think he's going to carry on playing club rugby, probably see him in the top 14, maybe the Gallagher Premiership. It depends what swan song he wants. Hey, there's no easy out anymore. So, yeah, big shout out to the Beast. Fantastic player, fantastic servant to the game. 117 caps in the front row. There you go. Should we finish the news there?
I think there's one more big bit of news we could throw in there.
Got to talk about it, haven't we? Saracens. Wow, oh wow, oh wowzers. So to some context of you people out there, wherever you're watching, who doesn't really know what's happening at Saracens, they've been fined £5.3 million and they've been deducted 35 Premiership points, which leaves them on 25, 26 points minus now, but they've appealed, so that's going to go through the courts and go through the lawyers, if you like. What can I say about all this? It's a really difficult one for me. I got asked to go on Sky TV and talk about this, Sky News. I got asked to go on BBC Radio 5 Live, and I declined all offers because I don't want to say something that is incorrect. I don't want to say anything that's wrong. All I can tell you is that this is an absolute mess. I've never seen such a fallout, as it were, from social media, which life is now, trial through social media, the comments, the fans, club owners, the Exeter owner, Rob Baxter, the Exeter coach, has said that it's unacceptable, it's cheating. Rob Shaw said the same thing, it's cheating. Baxter said if it's upheld and once it goes through the appeal, if it is upheld, then what happens to the two finals where Sarries beat them? Bloody hell, it is messy. Steve Diamond, if you commit robbery, you go to prison for 6 months. I mean, maybe they should take the honesty value from the top of their stadium, which is one of the core values of Saracens. I mean, Jesus Christ. And I'm not religious. I can't speak highly enough of Saracens. I was there for 3 seasons. I left Montpellier, where I was paid double the salary that I got paid at Saracens, because I wanted to go to a good club with a good culture, with great people. I cannot speak highly enough of the club. So it is a difficult one for me to comment on because I don't know what's gone on behind closed doors. You know, Chris Robshaw mentioned it in his statement. You know, we don't know what other players are getting paid. I didn't know what Mario Itoje was getting paid, or Billy Vunipola, or you know, he set up a company and what was going into that company. All I know is from my experiences there that I got treated incredibly well. My family were the happiest they've ever been, and they gave me an opportunity to become what I am now, a media superstar. Joking aside, they gave me a platform, they gave me time, they gave me an extra day off, they gave the whole team an extra day off in the week. I made some amazing friends there that I'm still friends with now, and I had the best time of my life, had the best 3 years of my life. Nothing to do with money. None of them things that I've spoken about were to do with money. It was to do with time, it was to do with relationships and memories that I made there. But it's a mess. It really is. I don't know what's going to come of it. I mean, people aren't happy, and there's a part of me that understands why people aren't happy. I should say that. I'm not turning a blind eye. You know, when Bloodgate came out for Harlequins and we saw Tom Williams come off the pitch winking, and Dean Richards got banned for 3 years, I think it was, and they got a fine. But I'm looking at it. A £5.3 million fine it's life-changing to a club, like any club, any team, you know, and 35 points. Who knows? Saracens didn't turn up to the Champions Cup launch, so there's been no comment from any of the coaching staff there. Nigel Ray's come out and did a piece on the Saracens Twitter social media page. Nigel Ray, for me, not because he's given me money or he's given me this, he's given me that, he's given me time, he's given me respect, and he, by being at his club and the experiences that I've had, gave me the best 3 years of my life ever. So I don't really know what to say about it. It's a difficult one, but I'm sure as the days, as the weeks, and obviously as the months carry on, we're going to see what happens here, and everyone's going to be looking with a close eye to see what the fallout is and, you know, how the other teams react. You know, you're a fan of rugby. Who's your team?
Wins.
Harlequins. What's your view on it as a fan?
Look, it's very messy, and obviously Saracens are just such a dominant side anyway, and they have been for so long. It's one of those things you know, you don't really know what to think about it. We'll see what happens over the next few weeks and next few months. And
do you think they've cheated?
Yeah, look, you clearly can't go and do that in rugby these days. Go over the salary cap. It's so well documented. Even before the whole Saracens stuff came out, you just can't go and do it. But you know, we'll see. I'm one of those people. I don't know a huge amount about it, as most people don't. And it's only really sort of come out in the past few months. But yeah, look, we'll see what happens. And clearly, sides like Exeter and, like say, Robshaw come out, and Steve Diamond, they're not happy about it, are they?
They're not happy about it, and this is the thing, we don't know what the situation is. You know, the talk of these shared investments, you know, shared house ownership, investments in businesses, I haven't got a problem with that whatsoever, because everything that I saw with the business investments were helping and were joint ventures, so they're helping the entrepreneurial side of players. You know, I got to 34 and that was a good age to retire. Some guys are retiring at 27, 28, and then what? You know, you're no longer this professional rugby player, this guy playing in big stadiums. You have to be someone else. And Saracens help build players into a new career, a new pathway. I don't know. Look, it's messy. I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to get myself in trouble. So that brings us on to the Gallagher Premiership. Again, see what I've done? A nice segue there. And this has all been happening under the radar. I don't know how many people out there have been watching the Gallagher Premiership, but it's been brilliant. Because obviously the World Cup's been on, so people might have been all rugged out. Northampton are sitting lovely and pretty at the top of the league. 3 from 3. Commentated on a couple of their games. They got a good win down at Saracens in week 1. And week 3, they absolutely humperdincked Quins. Got a bonus point within the first half. So Northampton looked brilliant this year. Didn't tip them for top 4. Don't know why. Probably should have in hindsight. Bristol are second. Great things happening at Bristol. Some fantastic players. Great culture there under Pat Lam. And Gloucester are third. They got a controversial decision down at Leicester at the weekend, which resulted them going from a draw to losing in injury time to a last-minute penalty. And yeah, Gloucester looked good, apart from that game at Leicester. We should talk a little bit about Leicester because, my word, they weren't even on their knees or their arse. They were on their back. And they needed that win against Gloucester at the weekend. They're second from bottom. Look, it's only 3 games played, so it's difficult to kind of pick stuff out. Bath are bottom. You know, Bath haven't looked great at all this season. They haven't. It'd be interesting to see how they go. You know, Wasps have struggled. They got beat by London Irish, who look pretty good actually. Been quite impressed with London Irish. Well, from that game, they got hosed by Sale. So it's an interesting one, the Gallagher Premiership, how it's all going to unfold. Up until yesterday, Saracens were bottom of the table, but since the appeal, they're now back up to 4th. So a World Cup year, it's always a difficult one to see where teams finish because England players, so the best players in their team, have to be managed. I think Sale will be pretty good this year. I picked Worcester for relegation. I'm unsure. Worcester beat Leicester in week 1. It's a really difficult one to call. Bath, they look struggling as well, like I just mentioned earlier. So the Gallagher Premiership, I'm talking a bit negative, ain't I? I'm just down. It's just the last couple of days. Just feel a bit flat with it all. Anyway, the Gallagher Premiership is looking good. Some cracking games coming up, and Northampton are looking pretty at the top of the table. Your Quins, what do you reckon?
They're struggling at the moment. I thought they'd have had a better start to the season, but you know, when you look at it, we haven't really got that many players at the World Cup either. We've got Marler to come back, but you know, we've got a lot of young lads coming through. But after last season, I thought we'd have had a bit of a better start. Yeah. But like you say, you never can quite tell in a World Cup year. So we'll see. It's a long season.
Yeah, it's a difficult one for Quins as well. We will see. Anyway, let's get on to some good stuff, eh? Social media posts of the week. Yeah. There's loads, obviously, because of the World Cup. And rugby memes. Have you seen rugby memes on Instagram? They put out some really good stuff, as do RugbyPass, as do we. But I don't want to keep talking us up the whole time. But I'm only going to go pick one thing. It was the interview after the World Cup final with Jill Douglas, Brian Habana and Sia Khaleesi. That's one of the most emotional things I've seen in sport. It really was that raw emotion that Brian Habana showed, and if you didn't understand how big South Africa winning the World Cup was, that showed you how big it was then. Brian Habana, one of the best players of our generation ever to have graced a rugby field. The embrace that he had with Sia Khaleesi and Sia Khaleesi's kid, and that raw emotion of actually what's just been achieved, and how much and how desperate South Africa were for that World Cup final. I mean, it was absolutely inspiring. It was emotional. I've watched it about 5 or 6 times. I don't know how we're going to show it on here. We'll maybe get a screen grab for you to see. So my social media post of the week has to go to Jill Douglas. We'll mention her because she conducted the interview, but Brian Habana and Sia Khaleesi in that embrace, and showed you actually what rugby means and what sport and how powerful sport can be. So that's it. This week, there's so much. We could probably be here for 2 hours talking about it, but we're not, and we're going to come back next week. So big thanks to Wolfpack. We're here, we're loving it. But that's Don't Mess with Jim. Week after the World Cup. Come on, South Africa.